The doctor lifted the woman's clothes, only to find that her entire back was completely decayed and rotting. But strangely, she didn't feel any pain at all. She just kept shivering and saying she was cold. The doctor took some fungal samples from her body, and when she examined them under the microscope, she realized that these fungi were astonishingly resilient and full of life. They could even parasitize human tissue, and they spread outward at an unbelievably fast rate. This phenomenon left several experts completely stunned and speechless. But soon the woman started showing new and alarming symptoms. Her eyes began to leak fluid uncontrollably, and within moments she collapsed to the floor. Then her fingers suddenly bent unnaturally, before smashing violently against the glass of the isolation room without any control. By the time Anna and her team arrived, they found the isolation room covered in traces of fungal filaments, and the woman with the rotting back had been completely consumed by the fungus, reduced to a pile of flesh, and most terrifying of all, she was somehow still alive. A few days ago, Anna suddenly received orders to immediately head to the Superdeep hole in the northern region. Not long ago, a survey team had discovered an unknown virus 30,000 feet underground. Just as they were about to conduct further research on the fungus, dozens of researchers disappeared simultaneously. The higher-ups immediately sealed off the drilling base and ordered Anna and her team to go deep underground to collect samples for study. Their plane ran into an accident the moment it landed. A man appeared, clutching a hand grenade, staggering dangerously toward the plane. Seeing that they couldn't stop him, the soldiers had no choice but to open fire. But even after being shot multiple times, he somehow stood back up completely unharmed. Then he yanked the pin from the grenade. Fortunately, Anna only suffered minor injuries and was mostly fine. After some investigation, they discovered that the man was a survivor from the disappearance incident, and judging by his expression, he seemed intent on taking everyone down with him, but no one could understand why he would want to do that. At this moment, while examining the man's body, she noticed it was completely overrun with fungi, and shortly after leaving the body, the fungus slowly turned into white ash. Even as a virology expert, Anna had never seen anything like this before, so Anna decided to check the workers as well. But as soon as she got into the vehicle, one of them urged her to leave this place immediately. Anna paid no attention and continued with her work. By the time the results came back, it was already dark. None of the workers showed any signs of fungus on their bodies. Only the deceased man showed unusual signs. But without high-precision equipment for further testing, Anna couldn't determine the exact cause. To uncover the truth, Anna had no choice but to risk going deep underground. According to the whistleblower, Jiggs, the base supervisor's concealment had made the situation far worse. The supervisor did not refute the facts he stated. He only explained that it was a measure of last resort. The colonel originally didn't want to bring the supervisor along, but the supervisor had changed the elevator password. Cracking it would take a huge amount of time, so the colonel had no choice but to bring him along. Then the team took the elevator down to the 15,000-foot level, which was the living quarters of the research facility. But halfway down the elevator ride, the supervisor suddenly pulled the fast descent lever, causing everyone else to pass out from lack of oxygen, while the supervisor stayed awake thanks to his oxygen tank. When everyone else woke up, they realized the supervisor had disappeared with the elevator key. It turned out the password was just a formality. The elevator could only be operated using the key, and to reach 30,000 feet underground, one could either take the elevator or walk through the pedestrian tunnel, but the tunnel's temperature reached a scorching 200 degrees Celsius. To survive the passage, one needed heat-resistant protective suits, and another elevator was still on this floor, so Jiggs guessed the supervisor probably hadn't left yet. Soon, the soldiers found two people in the lab, the maintenance worker, Jis, and Dr. Murrah, but they had no idea where the supervisor had gone. He only told them to stay put and wait. Anna then proceeded to examine both of them. Based on their blood samples, neither of them had been infected by the fungus, which left Anna extremely puzzled, but her mission was still to locate samples of the unknown virus. But judging by the situation right now, there's actually no so-called virus here at all. Not a single sick person in sight, not even one. Anna went up to the colonel and asked him straight up what the real purpose of this mission was, but the colonel just kept his mouth shut. All he said was that they just had to follow orders, and that was it. After the colonel walked away, the missing supervisor came forward on his own and found Anna, telling her she needed to get back to the surface right away, because down here, things had already become unsafe. The supervisor tried to keep persuading Anna, but he got cut off by soldiers who appeared out of nowhere. The supervisor had no choice but to take the elevator down to escape. To figure out the truth, the colonel had Jis hack into the elevator that goes to the second level, and he sent soldiers down the walkway to capture the supervisor. Just as the soldiers had cut through the steel door and were about to go down, out of a passage that's over 200 degrees Celsius, walked out a woman covered in scars. As Anna started checking her over, she realized the woman's body temperature was shockingly high. Her back was completely covered in fungus. Anna took a tiny piece and put it under the microscope, and she saw that this fungus was growing at an unbelievably fast rate. Looks like this is exactly the virus sample they were after. But it terrified Anna, because Anna knew full well that if this virus-like fungus got out into the world, it could very well trigger an unprecedented catastrophe. After the colonel got Anna's observation report on the fungus, he immediately declared the mission a success. At the same time, Jis also managed to crack the elevator's security code on his end, but just Just as they were waiting for the elevator with the sample, gunshots and screams suddenly came over the radio. Clearly, the soldiers had run into some kind of danger. Then the supervisor's voice came through the loudspeaker. He had previously told everyone to leave this place, but nobody had paid him any mind. Now they had already come into contact with the fungus, and leaving this place was no longer an option. After saying that, the supervisor blew up the walkway leading upward, and the pressure pump underground was also damaged. If they couldn't get out within an hour, they'd be crushed flat like meat, but the elevator would take another hour to come down. Jis had no choice but to figure out a way to hack another elevator. They had to go all the way to the bottom to find the supervisor and get the key. Only then would they have a chance to escape quickly. While everyone was trying to figure out how to get out, the woman in the quarantine room suddenly mutated. By the time Anna and the major got to the door, it was already too late. The quarantine room was completely covered in fungus, and the woman had been completely overtaken by the fungus. Yet somehow, she was still alive. While Anna was collecting fungus samples from all over, the woman seemed to get infected even further. Then the bubbles on her body suddenly shot out spores. Poor Major got hit right in the face, while Anna managed to grab a gas mask in the corner just in time. When she stepped out from the corner, she saw Mara, who had already been infected. Her spine had grown terrifying spikes, and she lunged forward uncontrollably. Luckily, Mara was moving slowly. Anna grabbed a fire extinguisher and blew away the spores at the door. Then with Gis's help, she managed to escape successfully. Anna herself was mostly okay, but the major wasn't so lucky. After what just happened, Anna realized that the fungus spreads by releasing spores, infecting and controlling nearby organisms, and using them to propagate itself over a wide area. Then Anna suddenly had an idea. She called the colonel over and took him into the cold storage room. Then she pulled out the fungus samples she had just collected, and within seconds the fungus turned into white powder. Looks like once this fungus leaves a human body, it dies instantly as long as it comes into contact with cold temperatures. Anna told the colonel to contact the rescue team immediately. Only this way could they save the major's life, but the colonel said this was a secret mission. They didn't have any backup at all, which meant there was no way they could take the virus samples out. But the colonel thought it would be enough to just take the infected major with them, because the human body's temperature would be enough to keep the fungus alive. Anna didn't agree with the colonel's approach at all, because there were people everywhere on the surface. Once the fungus gets out to the surface, the consequences will be unimaginable. But the colonel, sticking strictly to his orders, left Anna completely powerless. Just as everyone was getting ready to dig a passageway through the walkway, the captain's voice came through the radio again, warning them not to open the door. Right after that, a burst of gunfire echoed through the passage. But if they wanted to get out, they had to go through it. So the colonel sent out 3 soldiers to scout ahead, but it wasn't long before gunfire rang out again. When they returned, only 2 soldiers were left standing. One of them reported that through the flashes of gunfire, he could tell the thing had a huge, massive head, and on top of that it didn't seem to care at all about bullets. And the most critical part was that the upward passage had been completely blocked off by massive boulders, making it absolutely impossible to dig through. Seeing all this, everyone was at a complete loss. At that moment, a soldier missing a hand suddenly stepped forward, and behind him came terrifying, guttural growls. Then right in front of everyone's eyes, he decisively ended his own life with a small knife. Seeing this, everyone panicked and quickly slammed the steel door shut, and the soldier who had been unconscious just moments ago woke up at that instant. But the first thing he said sent chills straight down everyone's spines.
You shouldn't have opened the door. Now it knows where we are.
No sooner had he finished speaking than loud banging and crashing noises came from outside the door. It was clear that this path was completely impassable, so they had no choice but to head to the second elevator. Luckily, the second elevator had just returned to this floor, and now their only hope was to reach the laboratory 30,000 feet away. Jis actually had an idea, but it came with an enormous amount of risk, which was to force the elevator to descend and activate the emergency brakes during the fall to slow it down. By now, there was complete silence coming from the passage. It seemed like the door had already been smashed open by the creature. To buy Gis more time, 2 soldiers decided to move forward to block the entrance. But when screams echoed from the entrance, Gis still hadn't figured out a way to force the elevator to descend. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he finally succeeded, and the whole process went exactly as Gis had planned, using the emergency braking system to slow the elevator's rapid descent. But when everyone stepped out of the elevator, they realized the whole lab had already been frozen solid. It wasn't until that moment that Anna finally understood. Everything the supervisor did was to prevent the fungus from ever reaching the surface, and those dozens of missing people had probably already been infected by the fungus, which is why the director had locked them down there. After inspecting the place, they found evidence of a past firefight, but strangely, there wasn't a single corpse anywhere. However, soon they witnessed a horrifying sight on the wall. All the bodies had been frozen into the walls, and had even been fused together by the fungus. It seemed these were the very missing people. From recordings on the desk, they learned that the director had dedicated his entire life to building the facility. But after discovering the fungus underground, he now only wanted to blow up the entire base, because this fungus had existed for millions of years, and the Ice Age had just barely kept it from spreading, preventing a total biological catastrophe. If it were left unchecked, it would eventually reach the surface. No doubt about it, over the past million years, the fungus had been evolving continuously, and it had even learned to fuse multiple bodies together as a way to maintain the temperature needed to survive. At the end of the recording, the director said he wanted to see the creature's true face, which meant he had already left the laboratory and gone into the corridor, heated to 200 degrees. Before leaving, he had even sabotaged the cooling system of his protective suit, but if they wanted to get the key and leave, they would have to go out and find the director's corpse. Originally, Anna had wanted to go out and get the key herself, but the colonel took it upon himself to handle the task.
Grigoriev was right. It all has to stay here.
But after 10 minutes or so, the colonel still hadn't returned. Anxious, Anna put on her gas mask and rushed in to look for him, but when she finally found him, the colonel was already dead, yet he had managed to grab the activation key. Just as Anna was about to head back to the lab with the key, she was utterly shocked by the scene in front of her. The fungus, blazing like magma from hell, appeared right before their eyes, and it seemed that was its true form. A wave of fear rose inside Anna, making her instinctively want to run back, but she'd been in the 200-degree passage for less than a minute, and even those few seconds were enough to scorch her skin. When Anna came back, her whole body red and trembling, holding the key, she was suddenly threatened by Jix pointing a gun at her. Turns out he wanted to take the fungus back to the surface, hoping it would make him a world-famous scientist. Jix didn't kill them right away, because there was something terrifying on this level. He wanted to use the two of them to buy himself some time to escape. But during their earlier struggle, Jix had injured his leg badly and couldn't walk on it anymore, so Gix forced Anna to lead the way toward another elevator. Even though he was already trying to be extremely careful, he was still ambushed by the monster hiding in the shadows. Anna screamed and ran straight into the dining hall in sheer terror, and after devouring Gix, the monster followed right behind her. Its entire body was covered with torsos and heads, and the people embedded in it seemed to retain some flicker of awareness. With every step the monster took, those embedded souls let out gut-wrenching screams of agony. Anna knew exactly where its weakness lay, so she quietly slipped into the cold storage room. The cold room could keep the monster out, but there was no way she could just stay frozen there forever. Her eyes fell on the ice water nearby, and a plan immediately formed in her mind. She took a swig of strong liquor, then she grabbed the icy water and poured it all over herself. Once her body temperature had dropped dramatically, she slowly stepped out. The monster could sense her presence, but Anna's body had become so cold that the monster dared not swallow her. Seizing the chance, she snatched the key right out of Gix's hand. Then she went back to fetch Gix, ready to escape in the first elevator they could reach. As Anna's body temperature gradually returned to normal, the monster began closing in behind them relentlessly. They didn't dare pause for a second and sprinted straight for the elevator. In the very last second before the monster could reach them, they slammed the elevator doors shut. What neither of them expected was that the Major was still alive. Although his face and body were completely unrecognizable, he still retained some fragment of consciousness. The Major's now grotesque, almost inhuman form made Anna think that maybe they shouldn't return to the surface at all. She wanted to destroy the elevator, to put an end to all of this madness. But Jis had no such thoughts. All he wanted was to survive and get out of that cursed place alive, and so they fought each other fiercely over this. But the difference in strength between them was huge, leaving Anna pinned mercilessly to the ground. Thankfully, the Major intervened just in time and took Gis out, and only then could Anna breathe a sigh of relief, though she had come into contact with the spores covering the Major. By the time Anna was ready to initiate the self-destruct sequence, the elevator had already been overridden by higher-level authority. When Anna woke up again, she was back on the surface. Anna immediately snatched a grenade from a nearby soldier, and as soon as she got out of the vehicle, she saw another group of scientists getting out of the car. Without a second thought, she pulled the pin on the grenade, and that's where the movie ends. But humanity's quest to explore the unknown is far from over, and who knows what kinds of terrifying creatures they might encounter next. We'll just have to watch and wait to find out.